Hey guys, back with a new episode with Love Soleil. And I'm going to be honest today and say that I feel like my energy is a little off and I don't usually record from this space because I like to be my bright self. And I feel like I am mostly that, but I'm just in a space today. I think I've just been feeling like the heaviness of my client sessions recently and the heaviness of the world that we live in and the reality that we're kind of up against, so to speak, as workers of the light. And this might feel a little ranty today, but I'm just going to keep it fully real and say that it is not easy being someone who really is committed to their own work and really committed to advancing the vibration of humanity. It's frankly, as far as I'm concerned, the hardest job there is because the thing is, not only is it in and of itself extremely difficult to actually do the work and to face yourself constantly and to fine tune constantly and to constantly check your own blind spots and to constantly lean into resistance and all of the things that come with actively doing the work. But on top of that, we are up against a world that is so unconscious that they see us as the weird ones or the bad guys or whatever label they want to put on us because we're the realest of all, because we're unwilling to live solely from our unconsciousness like most people do. And because the unconsciousness and the ego's only job is to protect itself, we end up being the mirror that just gets you know, raged against, or I mean, this world is like a rage against its own mirror. It's really what it is. And it is that people who rage are only ever mostly raging against what they're avoiding within themselves. And a conscious person knows that. They know that if you feel a true sense of rage and discomfort, even as I'm feeling today, you have to sit with it and look at it and wonder, where is this coming from and what is this bringing up within me? And where can I fine tune myself so that I can utilize this energy in a way that's helpful and not just spat it out into the world. And it's not easy. It is not easy, and especially in my client sessions lately, I've just felt the weight of this being a lonesome path. There's a lot of lone wolves on this path because your entire family doesn't get it. And most of your friend group that you came up with doesn't get it. And the people you even, I mean, it's like most people don't get it. I love the analogy of the 144K, whether that's a real thing or not and a real number, I don't know. But if we're talking about 144K and there being 8 billion people on the planet, I feel like that's a pretty good reference for how many there are of us who are really, really, really about that life. And there's a difference. There's a lot of people who talk about it. There's a lot of people who really they've found the kind of the beginning, and not to judge, but the kind of elevation that comes with being on the spiritual path, that just true illumination of spirit that feels so good. And they stay there and they kind of just bypass the 3D reality because that's where it gets crunchy and uncomfortable. And it's much easier to just live in the spiritual bypass of things and astral project and have fun up in the fluff of the 5D and not actually fight the spiritual war that's happening on the planet. And I'll be honest, I did that for many years, because you don't know that you're doing that necessarily. You just feeling this rupture of awakening and you want to live from that experience constantly, and you wake up every day just filled with joy. And it's not to say that that's not how it goes continuously, because the truth of the matter is, as most of you experience me most of the time, I'm pretty much filled with joy. And there are days that humble you, there are weeks that humble you, there are experiences that humble you, there are still things that bring you back down to the 3D reality and be like, this freaking sucks. There are things that still suck. And if you're true to your humanity, that's going to happen. And it's not to bypass that. And it's not to even try to escape that, because I feel like there's a lot of information and wisdom in those days, like I'm having today. And I've been feeling, I think, kind of in the collective a little bit recently, which again, I also want to say, side note, the collective energy, it's hard to read a collective energy because every single person feels differently on every single day. And there might be maybe in your kind of proximity, there may be a sense of collectivism that you're reading, but the truth is 8 billion people in the world, you think they're all feeling something on one particular day? Probably not. And the truth is, as the world moves through different phases, we're going to kind of come up against different themes that the people who can actually feel, and the feelers and the empaths and the highly sensitive people, are going to feel in a different way than those who are shut off. And that's another thing about it, is this world will not only weaponize your compassion, which we've seen over and over again, particularly in the last 5 years, but also they will weaponize your own spiritual gifts against you. They will gaslight you for being intuitive. They will manipulate you, for having a gift that others can't have or don't have or have not developed within themselves yet. And it's like, you have to be a real person and a super strong person to endure this path. You really do. Because to wake up every day committed to your own evolution, not really still having the full picture, not thinking that that's going to be what like gives you the praise or at least notoriety or anybody clapping for you, like most of the time they're mad about it, It is hard. It's hard. And I feel it with my clients. And of course, what I tell them and what I remind myself is like, again, the true reward is not people clapping for you. Some days, some people will see you and it will feel so great and amazing. And most days they won't, because if we're talking about 8 billion versus 144K, then we understand the math here. And the true reward is just in the experience of being yourself, in the understanding of what it feels like to be authentically who you are, in the trusting that you are living out the design that you have been created to live out and to do what you're here to do, whether they clap for it or not. And that it's not about fame and fortune, if you will. We'll rework that to like, being high vibrational and being in your own energy and abundant. And on top of that, though, it's also true that like money runs this world and you can't like live in this world completely comfortably and in this high vibrational state if your money isn't like somewhat right. And that's another thing that I deal with a lot in my client work. I see a lot in even the people I'm around, like the struggle of money, because the truth is so far in the timeline of humanity, or at least in our recent times, like selling your soul or like stepping on the necks of other people to get into high roles is what makes the money, or being in your full masculine driven, just bulldozing everybody to get where you are. That's what makes the money. So those of us who are like, we're going to like be in our divine design and like be in our spiritual gifts and like bring everybody up with us and use our vibration to create the abundance. Like a lot of us are still working those money codes and we're working them actively because that's not yet what makes the money. They want to sell you the quick fix. We want to sell you like the foundational heal. And that's like literally kind of the epitome of what we're working with in this world. And that the world still avoids the foundational heal because it actually takes time and effort and work and active commitment to that, instead of the pill that's going to fix you overnight, but going to come with all these side effects. And so when you look at like everything I'm talking about and the way the structures of reality, our rise, it's going to take a little longer, and time being just completely irrelevant in that capacity, because that's literally what you're here to do. But, some people come up overnight, and we're probably not going to come up overnight necessarily in that same way, because our come up is the entire journey of the human experience that helps you rise into who you're here to be, and even never arriving, but maybe at some point, becoming a person where you can kind of insert yourself into society in a real way here and be this person, and this person's going to be able to make the money and like have the voice and do, have an impact, if you will, if that's what you're here to do. And not everybody's even here to do that. But those of us who are like reworking money codes, it's not only like within our own internal systems and our own subconscious programming that we're reworking money codes. We're reworking money codes for the entire collective. And you have to think about that. It's, again, that's like, it would be great if there was like a flip the switch quantum timeline jump and you're just in it and you're rich tomorrow. I wish I could tell you that. That has not been my experience, and that has not been the full experience of the people around me. Even those who are kind of working law of assumption and like mastering the laws of the universe around this, it's still not like an overnight quantum timeline jump and you go from like negative 25 cents in your bank account to $1 million in your bank account. I haven't witnessed it firsthand. I'm not saying it's not possible. I would love to think it's possible. I'm going to hold space for that being possible. But so far in my reality, that has not been the case. It's been actively affirming and scripting and rewriting, but you're not only doing that for yourself, you're doing that for your ancestry, you're doing that generationally, and you're rewriting the collective relationship to money, shifting from the shadow side of humanity being what makes the money and the shadow figures of humanity being who are the wealthy elite, to the high vibrational people and the people who are in their true spiritual bag being the ones that make the money. And it may not be an overnight switch. We are so deeply rooted in the shadow figure they who like run the world that, and have such clamp on humanity that to like release that clamp may not happen overnight. And I do believe that there's this like full spiritual revolution that is us, those of us who are like unwilling to compromise our morals and our values and our virtues to be anything other than who we're here to be and to make money from that stream. And first, we have to become that person and even understand what that means for each of us individually. And then you have to figure out working your own money codes and stories and abundance vibration to be able to make that stream. So it's a slow journey, and there's days and times and periods and seasons where it's frustrating, it's hard, it's exhausting, and some days you're like, why am I and that's healthy. Like, I really do think it's healthy to question, it's healthy to wonder, because it helps you continue rework. Why do you do it? Why do you do it? Because if you're doing it for the applause and you're not getting the applause, then maybe you should shift why you do it from the applause. And I mean, trust me, I understand. As like, I like when my stuff reaches far and wide. It feels good. I feel seen. Like I enjoy that too. So I'm saying this just as much to myself, because if I'm doing it for that reason in a fallen society, the applause is far and few between, and I know what's going to kind of kick. And when I keep it really real, people don't like that even as much. And I have to kind of work how I share what I say, especially on Twitter, to like let things send. Some things will send and some things will not, and that's completely fine. And I've really released attachment to that for the most part at this point. But it's also, unfortunate and frustrating to see things suppressed, and these algorithms coming in that are just suppressing the voices constantly now. For whatever reason they're doing that, we don't even know why, but everybody's mad about it, on X or Twitter or whatever. And it's a real thing. And that's the thing. It's like, we can only do so much, and we can, and however much you do is enough. And I think there are some days where you don't have to do anything. Like, if you need to rest and you need a day off, 2 days off, take a week off, baby. Like, take time to rest, because rest is also the revolution. Rest is how you recalibrate your nervous system. Rest is how you take your energy back. Rest is where and how you remember who you are. And if you don't give yourself time and space to rest and sit in the remembrance and not owe your energy out to anyone, or not have to do anything or be anybody beyond just you in your sweatpants, your hair pulled back, if you have hair, that's the revolution. That's the reclamation, is like, we don't owe this world anything. We are here to serve, and we will always serve in what we do and who we are, but we don't owe that. And the world is just most of the world is just gonna fight you for it. So if you feel like you owe somebody who's gonna like spat on you for keeping it real, you're just in a world of difficulty and challenge. You have to be willing to not be liked. You have to be willing to be misunderstood. You have to be willing to not be seen. You have to be willing for people to side eye you because you're not naked on the internet and you're not getting the views. And like, you have these masterful, deep truths that get 2 likes, and that's okay. That's perfectly fine, because the 2 people who liked it and the rest who saw it and didn't actually like it, but they really did, but they didn't want you to know that they liked it, it's still reaching where it needs to go. And you can still continue to fine tune, because at the end of the day, like, yes, we are here for the collective. We're here for the collective evolution, but that starts and ends with ourselves. So if all you did was evolve and you never, if all you did was raise your vibration, you never sent a tweet, I would say you're still on the path. You're still on the path. It's not for the applause, and it's for the people, but the people benefit from you just having a higher vibration. The people benefit from you just having a clearer energetic frame. The people benefit from you just by having a pure spirit and a clear conscious. Because the truth of the matter is, when you're around someone, not only are we like in tune energetically, and those of us who are empaths are highly sensitive people, or actually in tune, can feel and read and are somewhat kind of picking up on and transmuting the energy of others, but also brainwaves sync up, emotional states sync up. Like, there's so many things happening in the space between, and those who are actually aware of that and present with that, I think we've been labeled the empaths because we have empathy. And that the empath is, we're retiring that because so far we've just gotten our butts kicked in this world that like we'll just trample the empath or just like dump onto the empath or we'll siphon from the empath because we're the ones that bring the clarity and the higher vibrational energy. So we're transmuting that theme into just being ones who can read and using that for our own understanding. And, when we can serve other people with our own energetic and spiritual reads, and that's what, helpful and there's consent there, fantastic. But that's not, we don't owe that. I think a lot of people with spiritual gifts who are constantly like, picking up on things or reading things, they feel like they need to help people transmute while they're getting their oil changed or, and again, if it feels I guess helpful for you, it feels good to you in some way and it's for you, I suppose that's okay. But I also think there's a level of consent that's important here because most people are not consenting to raising their vibration. Otherwise, they would be doing it. And so those of us who are doing it and bring the higher vibrational energy does not mean we need to just be the dumping ground for those who are not. And again, we're talking 144K versus 8 billion. That's a lot of people that you would be the dumping ground for if you were just constantly consenting. And that's why a lot of the empaths end up just exhausted and hating the world and hating people and can't stand to like leave their house because you're so fried by your gift that you have not mastered. And so being in the world is just absolutely overwhelming for you. And what kind of life is that? You shouldn't need to be fried by your gifts. There's a lot of work to do there in boundary work. There's a lot of work to do there in not consenting to taking other people's stuff on, not feeling like you need to constantly transmute a low vibrational reality, that you just bring the light. You bring the light. And it's lighter to do that. And in you doing that, without you having to work hard at all, you will naturally invite people up. You will naturally transform and transcend your own reality. You will naturally raise the vibration of humanity, but it's not more work for you. That's the thing. That's where boundary work comes in, especially energetic boundaries, because then you're just existing. And in your own existence, in every breath that you take, you're serving humanity. Even when you're home, even when you're not in public, still your neighbor across the wall below you, or, whatever it is, you're still supporting and serving the collective by existing and by doing your own work. I think that's what's so important to remember. Because when you awaken, you feel such a sense of obligation to the collective. And you're like, guys, it could be so much better. Like this world could be so good. And you feel that most of the time. And then you get out into the world and the world just completely squanders that joy because they don't get it. And they kind of like their problems. They're kind of choosing their self-sabotages and they kind of love the drama, and that's why they sit in front of the TV all day long and watch their reality TV shows or politics, which is also a reality TV show. And they love the Matrix. They love being in the Matrix, whether they want to admit it or not. They do. And you got to just let them have that reality. That's not even a judgment. It's just a fact. It's just an objective reality that a lot of people choose to turn on the news every morning and throw popcorn at the TV because they don't like who's the president or whatever else, instead of digging into their journal or sitting into themselves or affirming or scripting a new reality. And it's just them and it's going to be you and it's going to be what it is. And that's going to be the nature of reality. And it's disheartening because we all know, those of us who have found that sense of true blissful awakening in our own experience, we want other people to feel it too. And some people are actively resisting it. And that's the hard truth about it. And that's where it can get frustrating and disheartening and feel like you're final because what you're actively resisting bliss and euphoria and awakening and recognition and like remembering in a utopic world. They are. It's crazy. It doesn't make the math does not math, except that the pathway to a utopia world runs through the self. And most people are avoiding themselves. If they face themselves, if they spent 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, turn the TV off, just sit and be with yourself. Notice your thoughts, notice where your heart's going, notice how your energy is moving, notice, what kind of reflection wants to come in. 5 minutes a day, we live in a very different world pretty quickly. If everybody did that, they're not. They'd rather turn on the TV, get sucked into the matrix reality, let their emotional stature completely shift based on what the matrix is telling them and how the matrix is telling them how they should feel. and they live out what the matrix is telling them they should be living out, and they're completely programmed by that reality. And there's a surrender and a trusting and a wishing them well on their path, because you cannot save people from what they're actively choosing. And when they're actively not choosing the pathway that runs through the self, that would take all of us into like a 5D 3D blend, fun, great utopic reality, you just have to let them do that. And you keep taking your pathway, and you keep rising how you will, you keep resting, you keep reclaiming, you keep remembering. You shift from the 3D, hardship, to the blend of the 5 and 3, just where you can have fun and be both human, but also something ineffably more than that. And that's the only way for you to win. You can't have expectations of other people. You don't need to carry their load all the time. You don't need to carry the suffering of humanity on your shoulders all the time, just because you can or just because you feel it. You don't need to. And also remember, you are not alone. I think that's really important, because some days it feels so alone, and you're just not alone. There's all of us in it, even if it's just 144K of us, still a big number, you guys. And we are sincerely and truly all in it together. And I think we're kind of placed all over the grid to like hold it down where we are, like somewhat intentional. So we might not all be in the same space at the same time. And you just have to trust that. And you have to trust that the one sentence you need from the passerby at the park is going to always come at the moment you need it, or the one music playing in the speakers at the coffee shop that you just needed to hear to remind you of what you know is going to come when you need it. That you like what you need will always be given to you at the moment that you need it. And that's the beautiful part of being connected and tuned into a higher reality, is the higher reality is tuned into you too. So don't forget that. Rest when you need to, soften when you need to, hold strong boundaries, say no when you need to, and stand tall and stay strong, and keep holding it down. That's my advice for you, for me, for the collective, for my clients, for everybody. Just keep going. Just keep going. Some days will be hard and some days will be absolute bliss, and both are necessary and both are important. And I know that you can do this. All right. Love you guys.